Well, when does too much become excessive? I mean, I had a strange fascination with it. Who couldn't help but have
How so strange fascination?
Well, because I'm a Republican, really. I don't believe in that. I think it's an extraordinarily expensive PR stunt for the British aristocracy. But there is, I guess, a human identification and also the spectacle, the sort of gushing spectacle of it all. You can't help but watch it.
And interestingly, it was the media who paid all the bills. For example, I don't know if you heard that to get a position in front of Buckingham Palace, that was about £6,000, and it obviously went downhill according to where you were there. But the media paid so that the public could go for free. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's good for the media to pay. I mean, that's a good cost recovery. I mean, the whole royal family, I think, should be on cost recovery.
Now, I wonder what your thoughts were, Julian. Lisa, was it overkill?
No, I thought it was a fantastic event. I thought that the young couple looked terrific. I thought there was a real sense of celebration, not just in Britain, but all across Australia. There were people who were both monarchists and republicans tuning in to watch a terrific event. And that's the magic of constitutional monarchy, that you've got this family who are above politics, who represent service, and who can provide leadership to both Australia and a whole lot of other nations around the world.
OK, David McKnight, hold those thoughts, because as Julian has mentioned, this is obviously going to arouse some kind of Republican feeling. Let's listen to some of the views that have been expressed on that this week.
I don't think it's a real kick in the guts to the Republic movement. I said to one of the leading Republicans the other day, let's call her Meredith Bergman, that this is something that's, not fantastic for the Republican movement. She said, oh, well, once Prince William loses his hair, it'll start to fade. And there's a lot of truth in that too.
The polls have been trending down. If you look at the trends from the time of the referendum, they've gone down to the low 40s, and that's just support for a vague, undefined republic. Once you get a model, of course, that splits, and strong support is now down generally at 25%, but the really fascinating feature is it remains a bell-shaped curve. Support is strongest among the middle-aged and weakest among the old and the young.
David Flint there. Well, David McKnight, let me ask you, Julia Gillard commented that she hoped William would never be Australia's king. Why is it, though, that as a nation we can't seem to get the timing right to actually make Australia a republic?
Well, I guess that's politics, really. I mean, Australia is split over whether we should elect a head of state or whether we should have, I think, a better option, which is Parliament jointly and unanimously decide who should be our head of state. And I mean, while that split goes on, you still have a lot of people favouring a republic, but they are divided on how we should get to that point.
So you're basically saying that not enough people believe that Australia should be a republic?
I'm saying that if you have an elected head of state, you have to have a lot of constitutional changes, because if you begin to elect someone, that gives the person a great deal of power. Now, under the present constitution, it's a very conservative constitution. That person has, I believe, an excessive amount of power and would be quite destructive to our parliamentary system.
Julian, Lisa, is that what is holding people back, just the amount of constitutional change that would have to happen?
Well, I mean, this is about the Constitution. It's about changing the legal framework for Australia. I think the division among Republicans about the model, as David's expressed, is very strong still. And there hasn't been any real work among the Republican movement to develop consensus around a model since the 1999 referendum. So people can say they want a republic, but it's which model, and I think it's up to Republicans to develop a consensus before this goes forward again. I can't see it happening anytime soon.
A lot of Republicans want a republic because of the issue of identity. They say it'll set Australia on its own path. But aren't there a lot of other identity issues we have to deal with before perhaps what some might regard as a window dressing exercise?
I think it is, to some degree, window dressing. I mean, I'm a Republican, but I don't think it's the most important issue.
It's not top of your list.
It's not top of my list. And, I mean, there are issues about identity, about Australia as a former colony, settled in a country not our own. That is a big issue, as everyone realises. Much more important in many ways than a republic.
I was going to say, we're going to have later this year, or in the next couple of years, a referendum on whether we should have some acknowledgement of Indigenous people in the Constitution, whether we should acknowledge local government. These seem to be the constitutional issues at the moment, and the Republic issue really seems to have died because it's lost the momentum because there's no model that people are united behind.
Do you think Australia will be a republic in your lifetime?
I actually doubt it, because I think that people... the wonderful thing about the monarchy is its ability to reinvent itself, and we saw a partial reinvention last night, and I don't see that the Republicans will be able to heal those divisions. OK,
well, let's move on. The rooftop protest at Villawood continues. Immigration Minister Chris Bowen said any refugee convicted of an offence in detention would therefore fail the character test that's applied to granting permanent visas. Realistically, Julie and Lisa, what can the Immigration Minister do?
Well, the Immigration Minister can essentially refuse people visas on the basis of character grounds. Scott Morrison, I saw this week, has commented that the legislative changes are not needed, that he has the power to do this at the moment. But really, the tension that's been going on in our detention centres, both on the mainland and in Christmas Island, is because they are overcrowded, and that's because the government's migration policies failed. I think the biggest issue in the migration debate this week has actually been Jose Ramos-Horta's rejection of the East Timor processing facility. He was the main supporter, or the person with the most open mind there. And I think that's been a significant development, because I think the government really needs to review that aspect of the policy most urgently.
Can I ask you, David McKnight, do you agree with the point that with the Timor option being off the table, it does seem that Labor is somehow hamstrung? I mean, how is it going to get out of this problem? The centres are overcrowded. What do you do?
Well, the centres are overcrowded, so you make them less crowded. The visa processing takes a long time, so you speed it up. You put more resources there.
And the government says they've been doing that.
Well, you have. Well, though this problem looms very, very large in the minds of some people, because it's sort of symbolic and a magnet for all kinds of atavistic feelings. I mean, there are simple policy things you can do. You put more resources. I mean, the hunger strikes, the lip sewing, the madness, the psychiatric illness, all of that needs attention and can be given attention and can work.
What I don't understand is why the government has this blindness about Nauru. Nauru is willing to set up processing in its country. It's even willing to sign the UN Convention if Australia
does that really solve the problem? It certainly doesn't solve the problem of asylum seeker policy, does it?
It does, in that it deters people from coming to Australia because they know they won't get anywhere near Australia, and they won't be assessed by Australian officials. They'll be assessed by the UN processes and the International Organisation for Migration. Nauru isn't in the path between Australia and Indonesia, and that, I think, is an important symbolic point in terms of sending a message to people smugglers and potential asylum seekers. OK,
well, Tony Abbott's been in Central Australia this week listening to views about the intervention. Let's get a snapshot first of the visit.
I think the intervention has made a difference. It hasn't been perfect. Nothing is perfect, but it has made a difference. And I think the challenge now